Hey everybody, welcome to this special episode of If You Give a Data podcast. I just wanted to jump on here really quick before we get started with the interview to thank my guest again for being on the show. It's a lot of fun talking to him. Now you might notice that some of the audio and the video might be off a little bit. I am working on that to get it fixed. I'm changing platforms here soon when it comes to my recording. So I do apologize for that happening at different parts of this episode, but I am in the process of working on that to make things better for you guys. But this episode was a lot of fun to record, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this. So thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
If you give a dad a podcast, then what else would you even want to listen to? It's old news. If you give a dad a podcast, then it would be of you to give it a spin or two. I'll go to your room. I'm in my room grounded, but I got a podcast on. He calls us beautiful people.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming back to the show. My name is Jared. I am the host here at If You Give a Data podcast, and I am very excited about this episode today. My guest, I got to talk to him for a few minutes beforehand, and I already know this is going to be an amazing episode. The conversation is just flowing, so I was like, we got to start recording because this is some good stuff that we're talking about here. I have today a guest who is an actor, a writer, a director, and a producer. He is known for doing roles with General Hospital, Dragon Ball Son of Trunks, Bloodline of the Grid, Power Rangers Shattered Past, and even played Morpheus in The Matrix Reborn. And I am talking about DJ Rivers. Man, how are you doing tonight?
I'm so excited about this podcast. Like, he told the truth. We're like flowing, and then at some point we realized, like, should we hit record? We should probably hit record.
Yeah.
I also didn't expect the introduction. I was like, oh yeah, those things did happen. Thanks, man.
Well, I always try to give like a good introduction to people because, it kind of gets them hyped. And so,
Oh, dude, I'm over here just like, you're my best friend now. Dude.
So, I actually, after I sent you the message saying that, I wanted to have you on the show, you told me that Colin was talking pretty highly of me and stuff. So I'm going to try to live up to that, and I appreciate him doing that and us being able to be here now, and talk. I am super excited about this.
No, Colin's, he's definitely a bro. I think we've definitely gone through like blood, sweat, and tears together as far as like a lot of the content that we tend to overlap in, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I know we value each other's opinions. So when he vouches for you, I'm just like, say less. So I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. So we're kind of going to just jump right into this. You are in, I'm just going to say it. It's really cool what you do. These
Thanks, man.
the different things that you've been in that I talked about at the top, with Bloodline of the Grid and Shattered Past, and even being in the Matrix, man. You can say, yeah, I played Morpheus. That's freaking cool, dude.
Thank you, brother.
So how did this all get started? Where did the journey begin for you?
Sure. Oh man, thought I'd be ready to answer that a lot better, but I gotta be honest with you, man. I'm such a movies and film baby.
Yeah.
Like growing up, that's always been like a love language for me. So without even knowing it, I was kind of a student of film, you know what I mean? And we all have our outlets, we all have our vices, but movies was always like bonding for like me and my pops.
Yeah.
And, my dad was somewhat older, rest in peace. So, he would always like break down the actors, the behind the scenes, Tinseltown, that kind of thing, right?
Okay.
But I absolutely was never like one of those artists that was like, oh, at 5 years old, I was destined to become an actor. Absolutely not. Like it was never a thought until I was an adult, like in my 20s,
Yeah.
And at some point I got invited to a set just from a friend of mine who was like working in production and stuff like that. And I just fell in love. And at that moment, it became real to me.
Yeah.
It stopped being conceptual and it became look at all the hands coming together to make this project, this product.
Right.
And it was very almost militaristic in a sense of cadence, Everybody had a role, a designation, a responsibility. That's not your job, that's my job, stand aside. Organization, which I appreciated. And then, of course, the peek behind the curtain made it less, oh, this is the stuff we simply admire, and this is actually the thing that can be created.
Yeah.
I guess that's like the more of the origin story, the spark of me wanting to become an actor or involved in production, period.
Right.
And I'll skip around in terms of the baby steps, but one conversation turned into many, getting me on more sets, just kind of familiarizing myself with the environment,
Yeah.
and eventually, just shaking the trees as far as like leads and head starts and finding out how to get an agent, how to become unionized, just everything, just in terms of, so is it as simple as they make it out as far as you audition and you make it? And absolutely not. There are layers involved. There is the union aspect. There is the different media aspects. And my first role ever on TV was honestly just by accident. There's different services, like they're still around, like LA
Yeah.
Cast and things like that, and you look at breakdowns, you look at things that you think you might be good for. It's basically code submitting. I mean, you're not going to find like I'm going to be the new principal in like the next Big Bang Theory,
Yeah.
but you might get a specialty like, oh, this project is looking for featured X, Y, and Z with X amount of talent, and some of them are union jobs that have to do with TV shows and film.
Yeah.
So I had auditions for a featured spot, and I just thought it was a feature, didn't think anything of it. And then I got a call from the producer, and I had my reel attached, and it ended up being a John Benjamin project. And he's super talented, John Benjamin. The
Right.
dude
Right.
is a goat. And the coordinator, who hit me up was like, okay, I'm hearing some feedback. Is that just me?
I hear something, but I'm not sure what it is. It's
Okay.
not on my end, but I
Let
do hear
me,
it coming through.
let me see if I can
All right.
mute that real quick, see if that works. Cool. So in any case, long story short, like as far as like my first acting part, the coordinator or the person running it hit me up and it was just like, okay, cool, I'm gonna send you your dialogue.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my dialogue? Because I just thought it was a featured thing. And he's like, oh yeah, by the way, John saw your reel. And he thought you were hilarious. So we're gonna send you some lines.
That's
Would
cool.
that be okay? And I'm like, I'd be good with that. Mhm. And then, yeah, everything else is, I'd like to say is just like simple beats as far as audition, book it. It's a lot of understanding the punches, rolling with it, and a
Right.
lot of the networking. Social media and content creating is definitely more of a more recent thing. Well, I guess not recent anymore, but back from where I started compared to now, the process is just elevated and different and transitioning and constantly transitioning. So even General Hospital, I went in for one
Yeah.
part, ended up for another part, and they called me like months later for the other part, and one
Right.
episode turned into two turned into three. And shout out to Mark Teschner, he's award-winning casting director, goats of soap operas. He gave me a shot, and ended up being a recurring on General Hospital. So they just kept bringing me back, and I've had an interesting. I'm humbled. Like I
Yeah.
appreciate everything I've done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
I think you said you've done, or well, you didn't say, but I think I read 17 episodes you did for General Hospital.
I don't even know. I know it's like 10 plus.
Yeah.
I don't know the
Yeah.
exact count, but yeah, no, it's a great crew, great team, great
Yeah.
production. Yeah, been around for a very long time too. So that's like history.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it was funny whenever I was first looking at it. If you look on Google, it says General Hospital, and then in parentheses it says 1968. And
Right.
I was like, no, he wasn't on there during then. So
Not my time here.
you ain't that old, man. Come on.
I look good. Help me up.
Yeah. So you've gotten to do all these really cool things. You've gotten to be, like I've said, a few of these already. How did you get mixed in with Chris Khayman Lee? Because I mean, you've become really good friends with him, and we talked about him before the show.
Yes.
How did that relationship start there?
He's my big brother at this point.
Yeah.
And I feel like people toss affection around like that, but he's like legitimately a big brother.
Yeah.
Like at this point, I have to remind myself he's Andros and the other stuff
Yeah.
that he's done in his career.
Right.
Shout out to Chris.
Yeah.
I want to say, so I was doing media stuff back in the day on YouTube, and there was a team of us. So we would often go to conventions
Mhm.
and do interviews and whatnot. And Chris was a frequent as
Okay.
far as these conventions, right?
Yeah.
So you start with maybe a first name basis, and then start chopping it up, start realizing the similar humor,
Yeah,
start
yeah,
realizing the similar interests, start
exactly.
realizing where we don't align and where we disagree with, but the debates are good.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm good with the prequel trilogy. You hate them, that's fine. I get it. He's such an OG trilogy purist. It's not even funny.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
the quickest way to like lose an hour is let him know, like, by the way, the prequel trilogy was the best. He'll just go into it. So yeah, it starts off with like just familiarity, and then maybe one day we just have a drink, two drinks
Yeah.
turn into three drinks turns into we should hang out more, and then that it just kept going from there. I the transition to Bloodline, we can talk about that later, but
Oh yeah.
he and I became he and I.
Right, right. So I do remember when I had him on the show, I tried to convince him to watch The Mandalorian.
And
So, so he didn't tell me no, but I don't know if it worked. I was like, it's really good. I tried my best because
sure,
I
you
really
made the
liked the
pitch.
man. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really liked the Mandalorian. I thought it was great.
I
So
think I think Mando is probably one of the best new Star Wars content that we've gotten
yeah,
by Disney, and that's the
right,
short list for me.
yeah,
And I mean, I'm not hating on anybody who has their Disney or their Star Wars that they enjoy. I'm like, my
yeah,
Star Wars might be different than your Star Wars,
right,
but Mando season 1 and 2 for sure.
yeah.
Freaking Rogue One is one of the best Star Wars movies,
Uh,
period, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, I
He
like
might
that
have he
one.
might have seen that. Like, don't quote me on that, but he might have seen that. Like, I want to.
Okay.
I feel like we have bonded on that one. I don't think he's anti watching Mando. I think it'd be hard to like get him to take the time. He
Yeah.
will never watch the sequel trilogy if he could help it. That's
Did,
for sure.
are you gonna? Did you see that they've got the prequel? Episode 3 is out in theaters again.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm like I do want to check it out. I really do. I don't know if I have the time to do it. Do you know how
right.
long it's going to be in theaters as the time of this recording?
I really don't know.
Yeah,
I know that it just came out, I guess, over the weekend, and they've already made like
sure.
$45 million or something like that.
I really do like episode 3.
Yeah,
Like, I really, it does have like a. I mean, and I mean this with all due respect. Like, the prequels weren't amazing, but they're extremely charming now.
yes, yeah,
Like, I would not want to be in a world where the prequels don't exist, and I'm happy to
right,
see some of the circle back
yeah,
as far as the love. I feel like recently it's kind of been like a redemption arc as far as like late bloomers. So, between
right,
the Andrew Garfield finally getting his flowers as that
yeah,
character,
yeah,
Spider
yeah,
Man, and now you got Hayden getting his flowers. I feel like there's
yeah,
another example now, but I can't think of it. But oh man, episode 3 to me is like just George saying, "This is my hurrah. This is
right,
this is the bridge. This is how we get to the binary sunset."
yeah. Uh, for me, I will say that out of the three in the prequels, that's my favorite one, and
Well,
I
bless you.
I liked them. Whenever the first one came out, I think I was probably in like fifth grade. Whenever the
Oh, jeez.
So, it's, and I remember watching that like at school. It was like the last day of school, and they're like, you know what, we're just going to put on Star Wars. And I was
Sure.
like, all right. So that's how I first got to see it. And
Mm.
I'll say, I still go back. I enjoy a lot of those. I don't watch the new trilogy. I'm not a big fan of the newer trilogy, but
But you've seen it.
I've seen it. Yes,
Sure.
I've seen it.
Okay.
But I prefer the prequels and the originals if I am going to watch
The
Star
the
Wars.
the the, the George anthology. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, that's my happy place, I guess.
Same. Same. No, 100%. You know what? You know which one ages and I feel like is now on people's, like, I feel like it goes up on people's lists as far as the original 6. Episode 1.
Yeah.
Episode 1, I
Yeah.
feel like goes up on people's lists a lot more now. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, respectfully, I do put 2 on the bottom, like,
Hmm.
now, only
Okay.
because, well, besides the technical approach to it, which again,
Yeah.
shout out to George Lucas,
Yeah.
it was one of those things where on paper, episode 2 should have been the best one.
Right.
Not because like it was ever going to be a substitution for like the duel on Mustafar or
Yeah.
Obi-Wan and Anakin, but
Yeah.
when you think about what happens in episode 2, it should have been the best one. When you think about the concept of, hey, there's a mystery to solve, and it ends up being a reveal of a new army type of thing, and
Right.
then they get captured in an arena, and then a platoon of Jedi. The first time you've seen a whole warfare full of Jedi,
Yeah.
and then if you see Clone Wars, the animated series now, or the Gendy Micro Clone Wars series, where like Jedi's are just like going ham, you're like,
Yeah.
you want that.
Right.
And then in
Yeah.
episode 2, when the whole reveal happens, we're like, oh, look at all these Jedi, which like half of them were just like the animators just dressed up, and they just had
Yeah.
their field for the day in terms of just like, hey, we're gonna have you waving around, we'll draw around you. The very first thing that happens is like freaking Django shoots a Jedi and he just one shots him. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, they brought their B squad.
The-
These are all the available Jedis that they had, huh? Okay, cool.
yeah. Yeah. So I will say, like you said, it goes up on everybody's list, episode 1. And I've noticed, I've watched it a few times in more recent years. I'm getting more out of it than I did whenever I was younger watching it.
Sure.
And a lot of the story makes a lot more sense. There's a lot of political battle in that first one.
Big time. Big time.
And so as an adult now, it makes more sense to me. And I believe that's part of the reason why a lot of the people who it's going up on the list for are your millennials who watched that when they were a little kid. And now it makes more sense to them now.
It drives home a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I'll even mention this, like the prequels will always get my favor. I do genuinely like them. Let's get that right.
Yeah.
But he wasn't afraid to really do something different. I remember the first time seeing Coruscant, I thought that was the coolest planet.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought that was the coolest concept of like aesthetically. Like, it ages well. Maybe it's a combination of like the city during the daytime. I feel like the effects, because there's several shots in like episode 2, it looks like a PS2 like cutscene. Like you're just like, that probably could have took another pass. But episode 1, a lot of the effects, minus maybe the Gungan fight, and where I was going with this is like the Senate. And even like that political debate and seeing how the senators have the pause in and out. I thought that was so cool to me.
Yeah, I did too. You can kind of get engrossed in that world with that. And it has one of the best fight scenes out of all of the movies.
The best. It's the best lightsaber, period.
Yeah.
It's either that or you're wrong. I'm sorry. Like, I love, as much as I love as much as I love episode 3, I'm like, that's still better. Because it is. The emotional weight, the pacing of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And Ray Park as Maul just sold it. I mean,
oh yeah, man. I apparently this is turning into a Star Wars episode.
I was just thinking about just like you brought on the wrong guest because we're gonna get fixated on this part. Sorry.
I do apologize on that. It's one of those things. I do want to talk about this though, and whenever you're not, working or doing these films, what do you like to do in your off time?
Oh man, I like to throw darts.
Yeah,
I'm a dart guy. Like I'm such a dive bar,
okay,
low maintenance kind of dude. I'm not even kidding. Like I'm a dart guy. I try not to get too fat, so I try to hit the gym. But honestly, I creating is kind of my vice. I think I'm kind of a boring dude, and I'm not even saying that. I don't even say that like in a bad way. I like being boring. I think I've earned the right to get boring. You know what I mean? Like, where half the time I'll catch up on like the anime that I do. I'm making my way through My Hero Academia right now.
There you go.
I need to get back on more on traveling for sure and make the time. And I do work a lot. I have obligations, so sometimes like breaking and tearing myself away can be a little difficult for me. Like I'm somewhat of a workaholic.
Yeah.
But in general, like I like simplicity. Like I really like simplicity. Like I'm the worst person when it comes to asking me like how my day is, because I'll always say like it's fine.
Yeah.
And like yesterday I could have got like robbed, but I don't want to get into it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or yesterday I could have won the lottery, but I don't want to get into it. So like I have to be reminded of like major events, and I think I answer very basic. Yeah. Where like, hey, how was your day? Like, oh, how was yesterday? Like, it was cool. It was your birthday. Oh yeah, it was my birthday. So anyways, what we eating? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm a very catch up on shows.
Yeah.
Go out where I go out. Very, very simple.
So you're an anime guy then?
I am.
Okay.
I don't even know if I have the claim to that anymore, because I've had some like real anime. First of all, yes, I am, but I feel like real anime fans, like true anime fans, list the stuff you've never heard of.
Yeah, yeah,
Never heard of it. I'm not talking about Studio Ghibli stuff. I'm talking about like just the deepest of the deepest cuts where like nothing's happening, but they're into it. You know what I mean? Like
right.
they're animated soap operas. But I'm a shonen. I'm a shonen guy. Sure, I'm a
Okay.
shonen guy.
Yeah, yeah. I My son keeps me relevant when it comes to anime and stuff. And
Okay.
we actually, it's funny. I am a huge Death Note fan. Love Death
Okay.
Note.
Sure.
And I got my son into it. He likes it. Well, I watched this. I saw this little clip, and it was like, oh, he has one more episode, but it's on another
Mm.
show that kind of explains. And I was like, okay. So me and my son found this and binge watched the entire season, and it's called Death Parade. And Light shows up in one episode on there. And what it is, it's like an afterlife. And
Mm.
one of the episodes, they actually play darts. And the thing is they kind of are trying to find out. They bring out the worst in these people to find out which one gets reincarnated and which one is going to go to the void,
Okay.
and there's a lot more to the story than that. But they're like, oh yeah, Light Yagami is one of these episodes. And I was like, oh my God, I
Mm.
got to watch it. And as soon
Right.
as we saw it, my son started writing fan fiction for it.
I
So
love that. I love
yeah,
that though. The fact that Kiddo is stretching his artistic legs. I
yeah,
think that's something in short supply nowadays. And I
yeah,
mean, again, content creating is content creating, but just
it is.
writing and just imagination. You know,
Yeah,
like the things that we grew up doing, like go outside, touch grass. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like scrape your knees. We'll talk about it later.
I'm very happy that both my kids are very creative in that way, and they've both got me. My daughter got me into My Hero. My son got me back into it. He's the reason why I got Crunchyroll. You know,
Ooh, boy and a girl, huh?
yeah, yeah. I've got two teenagers actually. I got one
Mm,
13, one 14. So this is
nice.
all from them, the gray. So
Listen, listen. You're taking care of business. They
yeah,
appreciate you.
yeah. They're pretty awesome kids. They're very creative,
That's awesome, man.
musical. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
cool.
yeah,
What
yeah.
instruments?
So my son is in band and plays the tuba, and then my daughter is in choir, and she's in select choir, like the one where you have to try out for at school and all that. And
Sure.
yeah,
Wow.
so and then they
Tuba.
both, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, and then
That's not easy, by the way.
no, it's not. But
Yeah.
I was a band kid, I was a choir kid in school, so I kind of passed that all on along to
I
them.
think that's so cool in terms of legacy, where you just
Yeah,
like dad was into it or mom was into it, and it's like, yeah, you're definitely my kid because of
yeah,
that. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. They I
The Carfax facts paychecks.
exactly. So we're gonna kind of jump back into Bloodline of the Grid,
Hmm.
and how this story came about. I want to talk about TK, and how that character was created, because he's a bloodline, because his own dad was a Power Ranger. So, I kind of want to talk about how did you come up with that character and starting this project.
No, great question. I appreciate it. So it was a couple of components. I can't say like a lot of it was me, but it wasn't solely me.
Yeah.
So black back, not the same word. Back when Chris brought the potential of Bloodline to my attention,
Yeah.
he always had me in mind for the son of TJ,
Okay.
but nothing else was fleshed out.
Yeah.
So as far as the fleshing out, I'll definitely take a lot of ownership on that. But as far as conceptually, he just always had me in mind. He knew that I'm I don't even know if it's a spoiler at this point. I feel like people figured it out, but I'm black and Asian. I'm obviously intended to be the son of TJ and Cassie, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so between that and you know what Bloodline was supposed to be in the first place, because I was originally just supposed to be an actor. Like
Hmm.
I don't know if you knew that, but I was actually approached just as an actor, but also just soundboarding ideas in terms of just like, hey, what do you think of the project? And
Okay.
I kind of gave my 2 cents and blah 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 blah. But to answer your question specifically about TK, started off as a Chris proposal or proposition, ended up being like, so what would you want to do with him? And I kind of let him know. And then once I became a lot more involved, I was gonna say a little bit more involved, but a lot more involved in Bloodline, and went from, hey, how would you like to be in it, to, hey, let's co-write it.
Yeah.
Your show running it, you're directing it. I trust you. We'll
Right.
do it together. Uh, Mutual respect. So Yeah, and I know it was important to me because one of the concepts really early on was TK. I came up with the name TK, but TJ's son at the time, he was going to be rocking like a kind of like a hybrid, almost like a blue and red type of kind of look. And I
Yeah.
thought it was cool, and it was okay, but to me, it was almost like indicative of like VR Troopers
Yeah. Okay.
because the main character kind
It
of had
was
like a
red and blue.
blue and
Yeah.
red aesthetic
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
But also, it was really important to me, and Chris was on for it, so I'll never thank him enough for getting this part. But I said like I kind of want TJ's son to be a red,
Okay.
only because like from Turbo, first black leader of the Power Rangers,
Yep.
representation does matter, and it is what it is. And TJ was the man.
Yep.
TJ went hard, and he became a blue. Nothing wrong with the blue, but there was
Right.
always like that. What if he continued on? Would he still have been a red space ranger kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I wanted to pay that respect to not only Andros, and I think his legacy, because Chris will never ever. You couldn't pay him enough to wear the spandex again. That's where I'm going with it. Like if
Yeah.
he's like, get that away from me. I'll take a picture with it, but get that
Yeah.
away from me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to pay that respect to Andros, but also pay that respect to TJ. So making them a hybrid of
Yeah.
Turbo and in space was super important to me.
Hmm.
And having them be a Red Ranger was very important to me. And if Chris didn't want to go for him being like a space Red Ranger,
Hmm.
say less. All good. I get it. Like
Right.
he basically like insisted, like conceptually, I love that. You'll be my protege. And we're Dragon Ball Z fans, he and I.
Yeah.
We affectionately make fun of it all the time in terms of like he's I'm the Gohan to his Piccolo.
Okay.
You know what I
Okay.
mean? And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like the reverse Anakin and Obi-Wan, where I'm Obi-Wan, but the mentor is Anakin kind of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, and I wanted to pay that respect to obviously TJ has a whole bunch of Theodore Jarvises in his family,
Yeah.
but I also wanted to pay the respect to Cassie, so I came up with Theodore Cassidy Johnson. Just
Okay.
as it might have I broke up the third and the fourth and the fifth, but we respected the Cassie too.
So I have one big question about this, and
Sure.
you seem like the guy to ask. I asked Chris about this, and I'll ask you. When are we going to see episode 3?
I hate you so much.
Sorry,
Can I
I
ask?
had to ask. I had to.
Can I
So
ask
yeah.
you? Can I
Yeah.
ask you a question?
What's that?
How did he answer it?
Uh, he didn't really answer it. So, he I can't really remember exactly what he said, but I don't remember getting an exact answer from him on that. So
I just want to fact check at this point.
yeah,
No, I could. I'm proud and happy to say I'm not going to give a date because that bites you in the butt. It
right,
just
right,
does. Some of the obstacles is always going to be timing. Schedules is a big one.
yeah,
Like schedule. Like again, this is done out of passion. A lot of times it's MacGyver mentality in terms of us taking $5 and making it look like $500.
yeah, yeah,
And more importantly, it is about availability. And the team that we work with, I can't say enough about because a lot of them are, they're taking the time out of their lives.
right,
We're not a huge production company. We're not being backed by, you know, Disney or what have you.
yeah,
We're doing it out of how as much as we can when we can, right? But I'm
right.
happy to say that we are pretty close to finishing it.
Hmm.
I'll just say soon. It's
Okay,
definitely more done than anyone knows because we had to reset or recalibrate
right,
the release aspect of it, but also when we push it, we're pushing it hard. We try not to get to it. We're definitely behind in terms of like pushing the hype, but we also want to get all of our ducks in a row before we do so versus like, hey, it's about to come and then it takes another X amount of months.
right, right. That makes sense. Yeah, I totally get that.
But we are close. We are closer than you think. Like, matter of fact, I've been editing it like last weekend and I'm excited about it. Just in terms of certain introductions alone and certain narratives alone, I'm such a story guy. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I want to see stuff that's cool, but realistically, Chris and I have a golden rule. I'm
yeah,
happy to say, like, that no matter what, this is something that will come up every single time with a bloodline conversation with he and I.
yeah.
It just needs to make sense
Right.
because a lot of times, and shout out to all the creators out there, whether doing a Power Ranger project or any type of web series or what have you.
Hmm.
Sometimes it takes a backseat to where it does feel fanficky, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know what that even means, but there's an affectionate term when you call something fanficky, right? It's the stuff
Hmm.
that may not make the main stuff, but it's out there, outlandish. I don't know if outlandish is the right word, but it's weird enough to be in this story, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
might look at it and you might go, oh, it's a little fanficky, right? So as much as this is a what if or what if in space kept on
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
we do try to make it make sense. We do try to we don't try to make things happen just because they happen.
Right. Yeah. I totally get that. And wanting to keep that story, to where
Fresh.
it fresh and where it makes sense, I can
Mhm.
respect that, uh, you don't want to put out what's the word I want to use? A half-assed product, and so you're taking the time to make sure that you have everything in a row. And I can definitely respect doing that.
And between you and I, with the exception of maybe Chris, nobody wants to release these faster than
Right.
I do. You know
Right.
what I mean?
I get
And
that.
we definitely do the best we can, and
Yeah.
we definitely want to get it out there. And some of the pauses have been instrumental to improvements, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most humbling things is when fans watch it and they catch details that I think they're not going to care about, but they'll have it in the comment section, like something as simple as people connecting like the character, the premier in Bloodline is like the emperor kind of thing, where
Yeah. Yeah.
there is factions, and even having like Devin from Beast Morphers and things like that, we're not just doing it just to do it. There's an evolution to his character. There's
Yeah.
a progress to his character. He's a commander now. Zane's a commander now.
Right.
Roles and designations where like even TK, he gets acknowledged as Captain Johnson, and people pay attention to it to the point where what's funny to me is where you go online and you go to Ranger Wiki or something,
Yeah.
and like someone fills it out for you and like they give you a whole backstory that you didn't even write at all, and you're reading like
Yeah.
stuff about your character, like, dang, what else happened to me? Dude, if you go there right now at the time of this recording, like there's a whole TK being born backstory that somebody wrote on Wiki.
Oh my gosh.
And like
I'm
there's
gonna have
like
to go
a
read that. Yeah.
and like the actual megaship was going down and Andros thrusted himself while little baby TK was being protected by TJ and Cassie as they escaped this fiery. I'm over like, did I
Oh wow.
live? What happened? When's the next chapter?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's about me. Cool.
Wait, I know what happens next.
Just like, did
I
I
wrote
die
that
and come
part. Yeah.
back? Like,
Yeah.
just, I'm a fan. I need to hire you, please.
So I want to ask you about this.
Mm,
Wear a lot of hats when it comes to this. You're a writer, you're a
literally.
director,
I'm
you're
actually known for wearing literal hats, but go ahead.
me too. I think this is the first interview that I've done not wearing a hat. So probably everybody's like staring at my forehead or something, because I'm usually wearing a hat every time I do this. But
Yeah, you didn't want
yes,
to be
I
too
do.
cool. You left some cool for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. um, you're a writer, you're a
Yes.
director, you're a producer. Is there one of these that you prefer? Is there one that you enjoy doing more than the other?
I really enjoy the writing because
Okay.
when I'm not saying I don't know if that's my final answer, but I actually really do. I really do enjoy the writing because everything starts with a concept, right?
Yes.
And then when it flows, it feels good. And when it feels good, that's when you know it's right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a couple of drafts, a couple of revisions, but also you're putting life into these characters. And one of the most satisfying things is honestly the actors and performers and
Yeah.
us bringing that to life.
Right.
Because anyone will tell you, well, I feel like most directors or editors will tell you, like the films and movies, they get found in the editing room.
Yeah.
They really do. Like you film it, you have an idea, you have a storyboard, you try to execute it, but where it comes together
Yeah.
is the editing.
Right.
So mine is like waiting for like maybe VFX, and this is all necessary evil type stuff in terms of waiting back to hear back to get an update, and people still having lives and deadlines and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I enjoy, probably final answer would be the editing process, seeing it all come together where we filmed,
Yeah.
because sometimes you do multiple angles, well, every time you do multiple angles and different
Right.
takes and different cuts, but when you get a sequence out of it, I don't care if the sequence is just a conversation, like, oh, I like this close up here, and then it switches back here, then that dialogue's going to over, J cut to the next thing, and then POV over the shoulder. It's the simple things that you don't even think about and care about, but I do.
Right.
So the action sequences are the action sequences, or oh, they're in costume. That's kind of cool. But when the story becomes alive, is when you find the takes that okay, this goes here, that
Yeah.
goes there, and then you
Yeah.
watch the whole thing. And you're just like, that's a scene. Cool.
Yeah.
We have the scene.
Right. What does your process look like whenever you're writing?
I hate to say it depends, but I really do think it depends. Like for instance, because Bloodline isn't like a huge budgeted, like, oh, we just have all the resources in the world type of project,
Yeah.
I believe in being effective. I mean, truth be told, episode one of Bloodline wasn't never supposed to be an episode. It was supposed to be a trailer.
Okay.
And then we shot a lot just for the trailer. And my dumb self, because of like hurting myself, was like, we should do something with this. Like, it's more than just a trailer. Like, we could actually do something with this.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to like out myself or out ourselves this way. But when you think about episode one, it's a Pokemon battle. They don't ever touch each other. They like literally like the exposition
Yeah.
or like the narrative as far as like hearing Andros and Zane, I think is cool, especially
Uh-huh.
because we haven't seen those characters together.
Right.
And I feel so good about. I felt lucky to be able to bring those characters together on
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
But afterwards, when like SPD and Colin and Jordan, who plays Nova, shout out to Jordan,
Uh-huh.
when they come by, they're shooting at us. We reflect, we parry, we attack them back. They don't ever touch once. It's literally a Pokemon Final Fantasy battle back in the day.
Yeah.
And then it's cool, but there's not much outside of like the actual story dialogue part. Nothing
Right.
else really happens
Yeah.
to the point where I'm like, dang, we need a zinger. We need something to tag onto this because it's too short to be a whole thing, but it's also too long to be another thing. So this is where the lucky accident happened. And I feel like this was a defining moment as far as like for forming the Red Raiders,
Okay.
because the last scene in episode one is where Patrick gets introduced as Psycho Red, and then
Yes.
the moment I brought up like, dude, what if Andros and Psycho? Dude, do you remember when the Psycho Rangers first came up? They were tough.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
They were badasses. Like
for sure.
any one of them could probably take out half of the team. They were
Yeah.
a problem.
Yeah.
One of the coldest introductions, lightning in the dark. Like they were tough Rangers, and they technically never really lost. They just kind of got defeated.
Right.
So, and they hated their counterparts. They
Yeah.
hated the Rangers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the moment I brought up, like, what if Psycho Red was working with Andros? Immediately, it was like, how? Why would he? I'm like,
Yeah.
exactly. There'd be
Yeah.
no reason. It'd be
Right.
like the last thing you'd ever like suspect.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like Lord Zed being like the leader of a Ranger team. Like, why? Or
Well,
why would he?
if you think about it, they did it in X-Men. Magneto was over the X-Men at one point.
True enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you give them the right reason behind it, you can find a story there.
exactly.
Yeah.
So part of it, to answer your question directly, is part of it in terms it's what's interesting, but also what's effective storytelling. Because we don't
Yeah.
have all the resources and we don't have like episode on episode on episode on turnaround.
Right.
It's how could we effectively tell a story, something that's interesting, little tidbits too, because even then, like in episode two, we talk about like more world building and who's involved and who's not involved, and like these data cards and blah 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 blah. But
Right.
it's interesting enough. It's interesting enough to ask the question like, oh, where are they going with this?
Yeah.
So one, an interesting concept, and then two, is it effective enough to take it to a next part of the story?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously after that, it's just like, can we do it? Execution. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So your transformation when you turn into the Red Fusion Ranger, so cool. Did you come up with that yourself? Like, I mean, obviously, it's a mixture in there. You say, shift into space, and let's rock it. Did you come up with all of this, or was it a group effort?
uh, I'd say mostly me.
Okay.
I could honestly say like the name Red Fusion Space Ranger was actually a Colin and I moment.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were we were filming Shattered Past because I morphed there first,
Yes.
and then I had my own solo morph in Bloodline of the Grid.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So and I could definitely give my kudos to Colin because originally I think he was gonna like 1v1 it with Draken. And
Mm-hmm.
then just through, us talking, I was just like, my suit's gonna be ready pretty soon. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get it whenever I was. And he's like, well, do you think you can get it by this time? I'm like, and and then he's just like, well, I'll tell you what, if it does, let's do a scene. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
I morphed first on that.
Yeah.
And even then I didn't have like the whole shift into space thing, right? I just say
Yeah.
let's rock it
Right.
in Shattered Past.
Yeah.
So by the time I was able to actually give the time as far as a TK morph, like a proper TK morph, I wanted to highlight the fusion part. So even on the suits,
Mm-hmm.
it's fine now, but initially, like for instance, the in space suit now has like the turbo patches, like
Right.
maybe the Car Ranger symbol, the number one.
Yep.
It feels more fusiony.
Yeah.
But originally, it was the helmet has always been like an amalgamation of in space and turbo. People who says it's just a turbo helmet, they're wrong. The
Right.
visors, like there's details that you gotta pay attention. It is what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
But originally people would look at it and they're just like, that's the wrong helmet. And I was like, look at it, look at the details. There's no mouth like turbo. Like it's actually the in space with just the grill. Like literally
Yeah.
it's just the grill. But the
Yeah.
moment you see the headlights, you're just like, oh, it's just the turbo helmet. I'm like,
Yeah.
no,
No,
there's
there's more to it.
details.
Exactly.
So I wanted to highlight the fusion part more. So even like the call out, like the ship in the space,
Yeah.
all that was me. All that
Yeah.
was me. And then honestly, the inspiration for the actual fusion morph sequence where like the beams come up. Obviously, I wanted to pay my respect to the actual, in space morph.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
part of it was actually, if you ever seen like Dragon Ball Z? Are you a Dragon Ball Z fan?
Absolutely. Last week's episode was Dale Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a part in BoJack
Okay.
movie where Gohan turns Super Saiyan, and before he does, like all these light trails go upwards, and then he
Yeah.
becomes Super Saiyan. Oh, that was 100% like the inspiration there.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. All right. I like that. Yeah. So Dragon Ball Z kind of leads
Yes.
into something else that you have done that I want to talk about here. And that
Yeah.
is you played Piccolo. And I will say you did I love James Marsters. I think he's great. I'm a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer
Yeah,
fan,
he's awesome. Yeah.
but you did a better job playing Piccolo. Just gonna
Oh,
say it,
stop it.
man. I
Wait.
loved it. You did a great job. I really enjoyed that in Son of Trunks.
I appreciate you.
Yeah,
Way too big of a praise. I mean, shout out to. I felt bad for James
I do too. Yeah,
because he's genuinely a fan, and you can
he is.
tell.
Yeah,
You can tell.
yeah,
And it just wasn't the movie he wanted to do.
right.
But
I got to pick on him a little bit. I was a guest at Metrotham Con last year in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he was one of the guests there as well. And so I got to talk to him quite a bit, and I kind of, got to pick at him a little bit, and because he also did Zamasu in
yes,
Super.
Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah. And so, knowing that and everything, because it recently came out, that he did that because he went under
Super
a different
recent. Yeah.
name and
Yeah.
everything. So that was kind of cool,
Do you know why he did? Do you know why he went by a pseudonym?
He didn't want any credit for it. He felt so bad for the Dragon Ball movie.
He didn't want credit for it, but I believe in an interview he also said he didn't want to taint it by drawing that negative attention too.
Right. Yeah. Which
So
I
he
respect
wanted it
that.
to stand on its own, and if people found out later, that's fine.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to take away the focus.
Yeah.
When I mean, he treats it like George Clooney treats Batman and Robin, where if you bring up Batman and Robin to George Clooney, they'll give you a refund right there and then. Like, okay, I owe you this. I'm sorry about that. Didn't mean to ruin your childhood.
Yeah, I was still young enough when that movie came out that I found a way to enjoy it.
Batman and Robin.
Yeah, I was still.
Yeah, her name was Alicia Silverstone. I know. I agree.
Yeah. I that and Batman Forever. I mean, I had a friend who me and him we watched those over and over again.
Batman Forever is a great movie. Honestly, Val Kilmer underrated Bruce Wayne.
I agree. I definitely agree. Who's your favorite? we're gonna go off subject here for a second.
Oh no.
You a Batman fan, I'm guessing then.
Oh no.
Um, which one is your? I want to know who's your favorite Batman and who's your favorite Bruce Wayne.
Easy answer, Kevin Conroy. But
Okay.
if we're not counting, because I'll be honest with you,
Okay.
that's always going to be the answer, just because
Yeah.
that voice was so iconic.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
But live action is live action. But
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy, just as long as he was doing it, he is the voice of Batman.
Right. Right.
I get goosebumps just thinking about like the opening, like I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
iconic. Um, I gotta be honest with you. Like I say what you want, but Ben Affleck is the most comic book accurate version. I'm not saying he's like my favorite, but I'm
Yeah.
telling you, he's like the most comic book accurate version.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Um, if I honestly think Val Kilmer is probably the best Bruce Wayne.
Okay. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is not to take anything away from Christian Bale, because here's the problem with like the Nolan Batman movies. Everyone killed it.
Right.
Everyone killed it, right? But I'm also not going to pretend like, his Bruce Wayne is. I'm sorry, his Batman's like kind of skinny, kind of on the. Not that he wasn't muscular, not that he didn't put in the work, but they deliberately made him like a more slender Batman. He was more tactile, like special ops Batman than let's say the warehouse scene with like Batfleck
Yeah.
in Batman v Superman. That's the most Batman sequence I've ever seen on film. Period.
Yeah. 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 I can go with that. I can believe that.
But I will say, like, in terms of Batman presence, I'd say Keaton's Batman had the Batman presence the best, while Kilmer had the best Bruce Wayne, and then Batfleck was probably the most comic book accurate, period, because he was.
Right.
Even in terms of, like, stature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And okay, yours.
Mine. Okay. So my favorite Batman is Keaton. That's my favorite Batman. Always will be. That's the one I grew up with, the most.
I get it.
So that's what I got. I will say though, Conroy, you can't go wrong with that voice.
Yeah.
He is amazing. And
so
I've been rewatching, or I've started watching Devil May Cry on Netflix, and hear him playing a voice on there. It's kind of weird because I know that he's not here anymore, but it's still really cool to hear that smooth voice on
Definitely.
there. So,
Definitely.
And for me, it's Christian Bale for Bruce Wayne. And to me, it was just, he was a believable one, in my opinion. He had the swagger of what a billionaire would have almost, and so that's kind of my main reason why I say him.
I definitely wouldn't flip-flop. If it wasn't Val, it probably would be Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Because my favorite thing about Christian Bale's Batman is you got to see the training.
Yes.
That's the reason why I love Batman Begins so much, is because it was believable in the sense of even distinguishing the difference between justice and evil. Like he lived with thieves. You know what I mean? He went to jail. He saw a kid who was hungry and gave him food because he was slumming it himself. That's probably like one of my favorite parts about that Bruce Wayne was you got to see the ethics of what Batman is and save the soul of Gotham because he became the mind of the criminal.
Right.
Did you? I respect that.
Did you watch Gotham?
Not like consecutively. Like I know like the beats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite Joker is from that. I thought that Cameron Monaghan, his Joker, because he played two different people. He played both. He played Jermaine and Jerome. In that, and so it was. I don't know, that just the way that he was able to do it, I felt him pulling from all these different people when it came to his versions of the Joker. And so I out of all of them, that's probably my favorite. And then, Heath would be right there with him.
Heath is an interesting case because everything that Nolan did fit his Gotham. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, if we're talking about like Joker dropping into a vat of acid Joker, that's not it. But in terms of like the criminal mind who is an agent of chaos. First, and let me get this right real quick. That Joker performance is amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Worth every bit of that Academy Award, right?
Yep. Yep.
Uh, but that was a perfect Joker in that world.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's not to take anything away. It's just that Nolan was very specific as far as like the characters he was crafting in a crime drama,
Yep.
as opposed to a camp comic book,
Right.
all the way subvert comic book version.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
I can agree with that. But and we kind of just went off on something else there, talking about Batman, but that's okay.
nerd talk.
I love this. It's one of the reason why I call it If You Give a Dad a Podcast is because you never know what's going to happen.
I dig it.
We want to talk about this. Well, we'll go over here and then we'll go over here and we'll talk about this a little bit. So
If you're going to talk about the Matrix,
exactly. Speaking of the Matrix, I'm guessing were you a big Matrix fan? Did you whenever they first came out? I mean, that was
bro. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, simple answer. Like I was a huge. I don't even mean to say was.
Still am.
The fourth one kind of broke my heart. The fourth one, but here's the thing too. I think the fourth one did what it was supposed to do. I think the Wachowski sister, sister, right?
Yes.
Does she go?
Yeah.
They go back. Yeah.
Yep.
Because the both of them didn't come back this time. I think they did it just to keep it out of like Warner Brothers' hands.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I love the answer to your question. Do you even want to know how I even got involved with that whole Matrix?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So that was for a very talented content creator called King Bader, and he has a bunch of a lot of anime. He got to start doing Vine anime content, that kind of thing, and then he started getting into more length films.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he approached me in terms of wanting to play Morpheus, but he tends to approach me with anything that's like a father figure or a coach or a big bro type. Like he tends to come to me, right? Or if he needs somebody to rock a ball head, I guess. And we were talking, and then as we're soundboarding and this and that, like I'm just like fact giving all this stuff about Matrix, right? Because I do love the Matrix.
Yeah,
I really do. Like even if like you want to say the second and third weren't your favorite, I actually love the trilogy.
I do too.
Genuinely love the trilogy. I think on a philosophical level, it's so good.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of emphasizing the power of choice. And but anyways, as we're talking, and this is where I appreciate Vader, because he is a talented kid. For a very long time, he would always he has to be the only writer, the only director. He wants to be the writer and director of his own stuff.
Okay.
But when we were talking about it and working shop, it was probably the first time he allowed somebody else to write something for him.
Okay.
So if you look at the Matrix Reborn credits, you'll see it was written by he and I.
Okay.
So because I just love the Matrix so much, right?
Right.
So that's
you got all the lore.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's no one who doesn't know it more than me, but I would definitely take the challenge. That's all.
Take you on one of those what are the trivia night, Matrix trivia night or something.
I feel like I do pretty well.
Yeah. I will say I didn't watch all of 4 because it was kind of started it and I never went back and finished it kind of thing.
But you saw the 3, just not the 4.
Right. I watched 1 through 3 and I loved the trilogy, and pretty much 2 and 3 are one movie, and they had some of the best action scenes in there. I love the interstate fight, I
one
think
of the
best. It's
one
so
of the
cool.
best car scenes ever.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so much that happens there, and just the idea behind, okay, well, he didn't even have to get in the car, he would just, go through the car and back into his seat, and able to do that. And they're saying, okay, well, I'm going to try to stab him. Well, that got him out of the car because, he's not going to be stabbed. He would,
he has the face.
Yes, exactly. So, and I loved how much thought went into
Yes.
all of that. There was so much going on, but it was very precise, and I really appreciated that part in the movie.
I even appreciated like a different aspect of, because the first one was really good about making you think that what if this one thing wasn't just that one thing, like the concept of deja vu,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
In the first one, that made you wonder, like, dang, I wonder if a deja vu is a glitch in the matrix. Like, oh
yeah,
shit. To the point where, and the original 70s, 78 Superman kind of had that same effect where
yeah.
you saw something, you believed it so hard, people tried to fly. People actually did
Right,
try to fly.
right,
Same thing with the Matrix. You believe, like, man, maybe this is a construct. Maybe all this is BS. And realistically, because like the brain
right.
rarely taps like even close to its full potential, right? So
Yeah,
maybe we are plugged in, maybe we are just being restricted. So people weren't trying to unplug themselves,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah,
But it made you. So one thing I appreciate about the second movie is it gave you a new aspect of anytime. There's a line where they say, anytime you've ever heard of werewolves,
yeah.
or
Yes.
ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
that's the Matrix trying to fix itself with programs that's not supposed to be there, blah 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 blah.
Right.
And it's a toss away line if you don't pay attention. But if you're paying
Yeah,
attention, you're just like, oh, so anytime there is like a supernatural Bigfoot or something like that, it might be a rogue program.
yeah, yeah.
Those twins are supposed to represent ghosts.
Okay.
The other people in the lobby scene with the stairs, they're like werewolves and vampires.
Yeah.
These are literally your supernatural lore
Right.
characters that the Matrix actually created for us.
Well, they even say at one point that you can only kill these guys with silver bullets. When they're back there and you look in the background and the TV, they're watching a vampire movie, and she
Yes,
shoots them in the head and he said, you can only kill them with silver bullets. I'm like, okay, that goes along with what they were saying. They're an old
exactly.
program that no longer works.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
Good stuff.
yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm nerding out really hardcore right now. So,
Bro, I'm telling you, man, like a couple of drinks,
yep,
over.
definitely. Yeah. It's, we're going to have to make this happen. Seriously.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
So I've just got a couple more questions for you, and we're going to wrap it up here and
Oh, all
everything.
good, brother. Yeah.
So, what are some of the goals that you have set for this next year?
Creatively or as a person?
We could do either one, man.
Either one.
Yeah.
I want to travel more.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, I'm a workaholic. I feel like I'm finally at a place where it's not that I don't ever travel, but I rarely travel because I
Yeah.
feel like I rarely allow myself to detach and pull myself away. And I think, I think as individuals, we all have our periods of needing to figure things out,
Yeah.
whether it's personally, monetarily, socially, or even just honestly, just what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it, but just in terms of life, just
Yeah.
life.
Right.
So I definitely want to travel more. Matter of fact, I'm going to New Orleans next month.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
Uh, just to peel the seal back a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just to get it started.
Yeah.
And then get Bloodline. I'll say for Bloodline, get it to a point where the work turnaround is just more consistent and ready to be always able to have something being worked on, even if it can't be immediate. Have something always happening so that we can get it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then just as a person, I'm going through just that phase of existentialism was the word I was looking for before.
Okay. Okay.
But just
Yeah.
existentialism where honestly defining what matters and what's worth my time and what doesn't matter and what's not worth my time at all, because you don't take it with you when you die.
Right.
Regardless
Yep.
of your faith, regardless of your faith system or lack of faith system,
Yep.
all you know for sure is the material stuff is just, listen, I appreciate looking at all my crap, you know what I mean? Like there are objects that sit there and do nothing but make me smile when I look at it type stuff. But
Right.
at the end of the day, they're not coming with me.
Right.
So all I know is surrounding myself and implementing the ones that add value, not just on a selfish level, but just as a big picture, just doing your best to do good.
Yeah.
So in terms of that part, I just want to surround myself with those who add positivity and then reject anything that might make life a little bit more gloomy.
Yeah. So for anybody who wants to start creating content, that wants to start doing maybe some of the things that you're doing, what is a piece of advice that you would give them, or that you wish that you would have received when you first started doing this?
I feel like knowing yourself is one of the biggest steps,
Yeah.
because how you introduce yourself to individuals, first of all, the things you can't control are other people, right?
Right.
That's a life thing.
Yeah.
But what you can control is your skill set, your knowledge, and in many extents, like your appeal.
Mm-hmm.
When you know yourself, you know which individuals might have potential, who you might be able to approach, who you might want to work with versus you think you want to work with and you start working with and you know it's not a good fit. So the
Yeah.
more you know about yourself, it helps you navigate the team that you're assembling,
Yeah.
the feng shui. And don't get me wrong, there's always going to be sacrifice monetarily, time wise, or maybe you're working with a coworker you don't want to work with, but you know the product is better.
Yeah.
So it's just being honest with that in order to be able to, establish who you want to work with, who you don't want to work with, if I can work with this person. And again, money is money, but that's a life thing, whether it's money that you pay bills with or money that you want to put towards projects. I say closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
The more you
Yeah.
know yourself, the more you know what type of interaction you're having with a team, because
Right.
you're not going to be able to do it by yourselves. Trust me, I've tried. Like, and Colin will tell you the same thing too. Like, we
Yeah.
do wear a lot of hats. A lot of
Right.
it is
Yeah.
just dependencies and being able to rely on people, and that's the nature of anything you're part of.
Right.
But the ones who effectively move it forward depends on you knowing yourself as well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also your shortcomings. If you know you talk yourself out of something, maybe talk yourself into something more.
Right.
Sometimes I can be mad logical or not logical enough. When I'm not logical enough, I'm Leroy Jenkins. I'm in, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm not logical, but I'm too logical, I'm just like, I just played every scenario Batman brain wise. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
need to go through that door. I've seen how this movie ends. I'm good. But what if? There is no what if. It's
Yeah.
dark. I'm the black guy in this friend group. I might die. I played this out. Trust me. You first. Anyways.
Have you thought about doing any horror films or anything?
You know what? Horror's not my jam. I don't
No.
hate it. I don't
Yeah.
hate it. Like, I saw Sinners recently, right? But to
Okay.
me, that's more thriller action, not action, but I don't know. To me, that's,
It's
by the way,
vampires, right?
it's vampires, but
Yeah.
dude, it's cinema.
Okay.
But I'm also a fan of the director Ryan Coogler because he's
Yeah.
just freaking brilliant. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it yet, but me and one of my friends talked about going and seeing it. So I want to. It looks amazing.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I really really enjoyed that movie as a creator, as a creative, as a director.
Yeah.
Ryan Coogler, and even just his talent. And we're not just talking about Michael B, who
Right.
flawlessly plays two people.
Yeah. Yeah.
The supporting cast, Haley Steinfeld, if
Yeah.
I'm butchering her name, but just the entire cast did such a great job.
Right.
But I'm also not like a Monster Palooza like if there's blood, guts, and gore,
Yeah.
that doesn't do it for me.
Right.
If
Yeah.
it happens to have violence where there's guts and gore,
Yeah.
it's a hell yeah guy moment, I guess, or
Right.
or just a hell yeah moment. Doesn't matter if you're a male or female. But if it's like torture porn and I'm watching somebody like rip out their own spleen just for the
Yeah.
sake of let's see how real we can make this, now I'm just like, God, I need to wash this down with like some Disney because this is just depressing.
I remember the first time I watched the first Saw movie, I had to watch The Incredibles immediately after.
Right, just to
Yeah.
balance the taste.
Yeah.
Just to,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
again, but even with like the first Saw movie, at least there's like a story investment
There
involved. But
is.
it's also
Yeah.
pushing the envelope as far as how real can we make this and how
Right.
uncomfortable and squeamish we can make you.
Yeah. 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 I love horror. I'm a big
You're a horror
fan.
guy,
I
which is
am.
all good.
Yeah. So, but I have plenty of other stuff that I like too. So, it's, I'm actually going to my first horror convention in October of this year.
Awesome,
So yeah,
awesome.
I'm the official media at one. So it's going to be kind of cool.
Mhm.
I'm excited about that. And I think last year they actually had Art the Clown from Terrifier at that.
Okay,
So
sure.
yeah. So that's kind of cool. kind of getting in there with that. So we'll see what happens. I just love the stuff. So
I'll tell you what, if there was an opportunity to act in a horror film, I wouldn't be
yeah,
against it. But I'm also I just know myself. Like I'm not a huge
yeah,
horror guy. Like
right.
I'm failing that trivia night for sure.
Well, I mean, hey, you know your strengths.
I do. I tried. I
Yeah.
also know my weaknesses. It's like I ain't got it. Like, no, believe in yourself. I do. I believe I don't got it.
So I read something on Instagram, and I have to ask you about this because it cracked me up. You convinced a lot of people um, on April Fool's Day this year. They thought you were going to New York and that you were having a child, man. You had a lot of people convinced from what it looks like.
Anybody that knows me, if
Yeah.
you watch my
Yeah.
social media is way more interesting than I am as a person. I
Okay.
think that people that know me knows I go out, I do my thing, and if you ask
Yeah.
me what I did, I'll probably be like nothing. I probably stayed at home, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think what was more believable is people believed I had a kid. Not that I was
Yeah.
going to New York, like
Yeah.
that also would have been like, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
When?
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people, it was just like it's about time, or
All right.
who was it? You know, like who was on the receiving end? Oh, that's
Uh-huh.
terrible phrasing, but you know, like who's who's involved.
Yeah. Who's on
So
the
yeah,
receiving end? Yeah.
so April 1st, April Fools, I basically put on my story like I'm gonna be a dad. I'm moving to New York, and I changed the note on Instagram saying I'm gonna be a father and all this other stuff. And it must have been a slow day because people were blowing me up, just like, "Duh, bro, I'm so happy for you. You're gonna be a great dad." And I got a couple of angry ones, just like, "It should have been me." I'm like, "Dude, that's flattering, but also you didn't tell me." Uh, I'm not even trying to like toot my horn. I'm just letting you know what kind of messages I got. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a slow April Fools because apparently people paid attention.
Oh, that's great. So do you have anything that maybe you want to bring up before I get you off of here?
No, just a big thank you to you. I'm always appreciative anytime anyone uses their platform or takes their platforms and includes me. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Like I said, Colin speaks very highly of you. You've been super supportive of the extended universe, so Shattered Past, Bloodline of the Grid. We appreciate you. We always appreciate the love.
Yeah.
And as creatives, you know, we're just a drop in the pool. You know what I mean? It's humbling to be able to say that we work with these Ranger actors, do the content that we do,
Yeah.
have some of the job opportunities in the industry that we have, and even the relationships that we're able to build. And now you're part of that. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a new relationship that we're cultivating and
Absolutely.
building.
Yeah.
So I don't know, be excellent to one another, Bill and Ted style. And we appreciate the support to for anything extended universe.
Right. Right. And if people want to follow you guys, if they want to see all of your content, how can they do that?
Sure, sure. So, Extended Universe, which is Shattered Past, Bloodline, all that, they
Uh-huh.
have their own Instagram as far as Power Rangers Extended Universe. You could cross the board look that up.
Yeah.
Now, Bloodline has its own focus page as well.
Hmm.
That's fairly young, so
Right.
we're even planning on launching a YouTube channel that's focused specifically for Bloodline. Still very much a part of the extended universe, but
Yeah.
you know, just to kind of give it its own platform to be look upable.
Yeah.
So you can find that page on official Bloodline Creations on Instagram. And
Okay.
if you want, if for whatever reason you want to look me up on social media, which I don't even, I post stories. And you know what most of
Yeah.
my stories are? Dumb crap that makes me happy. You're gonna find Ninja Turtles,
I think I saw
and
Sonic on there today.
you're gonna see Shadow and Sonic. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
see stuff that's just like, how old are you? I'm like, shut up and enjoy this Donatello. That's how old,
Exactly.
dick. Anyways, if you want to follow me, you can find me on DJ Rivers, or it's literally DJ2 Rivers, but you put in DJ Rivers, you'll find
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then, of course, follow Christopher Khayman Lee, big brother right there.
Yeah.
Follow Colin K. Bass, the Extended Universe.
Yeah.
We're around. We're all tagged and stuff.
Awesome. Well, man, that has been great. I'm going to talk to you for a few more minutes after we end this recording. But
Beautiful.
thank you so much for coming on here, taking your time out to be on here with the show. I've really enjoyed this.
You too, man. It's a lot of fun. Like the commonality and the nerd outs.
Yeah.
That's the best.
I love it. I love it. All right, man. And hey, we will be getting you back on the show here.
We love it. We
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
May have to pull in Chris Lee and us together. Yo,
absolutely.
That actually might be a terrible idea now that I think about it.
I want it now. I need that to happen. So
you need it to happen?
Yeah. All right. We're going to say bye here for now. And thank you again.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast.